Have you ever considered that we are living in a unique time, that something world-changing is about to happen, and that it might concern you? If so, you're in the right place. Keep listening, and you'll hear thought-provoking views behind the news that point to a new and better future for all. Many people now sense that humanity is not alone. So consider this. If the Christ or the Buddha walked among us today as modern men, would we recognize them? What would they be saying? And most importantly, would we listen? Every Sunday on this program, Share International Radio, we'll examine extraordinary events that are unfolding behind the headline news. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for. And now, welcome to this week's show.
Welcome to Share on the Air Radio, North America. My name is Cielito Pascual. I'm podcasting from Seattle, and very happy to have you joining us Sunday, and hopefully every Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Every show is a thought-provoking show where we talk about an unfolding event happening right now. It is the emergence of Maitreya, the world teacher, along with the emergence of the Masters of Wisdom. And there's a lot of information we cover, but we point to three very important ideas. Number one, that humanity has never been alone. Number two, we have help of an extraordinary kind. And number three, the solutions to the world's most challenging problems are within our grasp. And so on today's show, we're going to focus on the planetary and cosmic energies that are being anchored in the world by Maitreya, by the Masters of Wisdom, our great elder brothers and sisters of humanity who are emerging today to assist all of us at a very critical time. And I have a guest with me to help me talk about those energies. Her name is Cindy Bruder. She has a bachelor's in computer science, worked for many years as a software engineer, and now is primarily a businesswoman who owns and manages real estate in the Boston area. And like every guest on this show, she is a dedicated student of the Ageless Wisdom teachings. Welcome, Cindy. Thanks for being on the show. We have Cindy on the air. Cindy, hopefully you didn't accidentally mute. We'll see if you'll come through because I'm not hearing you. I'm going to let OMTimes Radio check their knobs and buttons, and I see that we are connected. So hopefully you'll be coming through soon. We just spoke 15 minutes ago, and we said a very powerful invocation, the Great Invocation. So looking forward to Cindy getting connected. I'm going to continue to lay the groundwork for what I got your message, Cindy, that you can hear me, and somehow we're not hearing you. I'm going to check my line. I'm not muted, so I'm going to let OMTimes Radio. I hear you. Welcome.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, OMTimes Radio. And I just want to acknowledge the hard-working technical crew behind the scenes that makes this show possible. So thank you, OMTimes Radio. Cindy, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. So let's dive right in. I'm going to start from the beginning. When we talked earlier, you told me that the first time you came in touch with the Ageless Wisdom teachings, a friend had given you the book written by Benjamin Creme. And most all of our information, if not all of our information, comes directly from Benjamin Creme. And his first book was entitled The Reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom. And a friend gave you that book. Why don't you take the story and go from there?
Well, I brought the book home. It looked like an interesting book. I put it on my shelf. I didn't like the word Christ because I wasn't religious, and it kind of my definition of the Christ was Bible thumpers and, dogmatic religious people. So it sat on my shelf for a couple of years. I picked it up. I had chills the entire time I read the book. It made so much sense to me. It talked about the energies, about how we live multiple lives, how our vibrational rate increases over the course of time. We work through our karma and different things. And the whole thing made a lot of sense to me, in that the masters of wisdom in the world were basically our older brothers and sisters that had gone down the path before us and, had a little more clue, and that as our evolution continued, that our vibrational rate would increase, our consciousness would expand, we would understand more and more about the energies, about the world in general, and our understanding of the world. And I use the analogy that these masters of wisdom, basically, they've all graduated college and the rest of us are still in kindergarten. I realize that's not the best analogy, but it kind of gives you an indication of they just understand so much more of the world than we do, and that ultimately we will get there. We will be able to appear and disappear, walk on water, manifest miracles, because we'll eventually understand how that all relates and how the energies work and what have you. And it really opened my eyes and got me very involved with this work. I pursued getting involved with transmission meditation, which is, some of the use of the energies. I guess we'll discuss that later.
Yes.
And it really opened my eyes. And I had been searching, like all of us. I, was searching, and I explored a lot of the New Age things. I took some New Age courses on psychic living for daily lives, and we covered 2 or 3 topics every week for 10 weeks, and everything from meditation and tarot cards and astrology to auras and
so you did a
healing.
lot of study. And
yes.
I've known you for a number of years. When I lived out in New York City, I would see you. You were up in Boston, but I'd see you twice a year because we would organize lectures by Benjamin Creme, who I mentioned, the author of the book. And you came down.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
Want to help humanity and the planet? Transmission meditation is a simple but powerful way for you and 2 or more friends to do just that and dramatically accelerate your own spiritual growth. You can read the book on transmission meditation free online. Visit shareontheairradio.org for details. That's shareontheairradio.org. Shareontheairradio.org.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences, to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
And we're back on Share on the Air Radio with Cindy Bruder. We're talking about the planetary and cosmic energies that are being anchored in the world by Maitreya, the world teacher, with this process of emergence that's taking place in the world today. Cindy, let's talk first. I love that your background is in computer science, and you were a software engineer. That's a world full of zeros and ones. If this, then that. It's a very black and white world, so to speak. But in the ageless wisdom and the esoteric understandings, there's some subtleties. Let's start with talking about the different states of matter. I think that will help our audience recognize the importance of understanding the different kinds of energies that are affecting us.
Certainly. We learned in science that there were three states of physical: the hard physical, liquid, and gas states. And we learned that, and that was fine. But there are actually, in the esoteric teachings, 4 more levels of physical above that. And they're still a physical matter, but it's much finer, much more subtle. We call it etheric matter. If you can see auras, then you can see a little bit of that etheric matter, kind of manifesting in our world. And these masters of wisdom and are in that etheric matter level of things. So, I mentioned that we live multiple lives, our vibrational rate changes, our consciousness changes. Ultimately, we become more and more light. Our physical body becomes more and more light. And that's
literally light.
Literally light.
We become enlightened in being, and our atomic matter is transmuted to light. I mean, yeah. I just wanted
that's correct. And that's
we're talking very literally here.
And that's how these masters can, appear and disappear, because they understand the connection between the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual aspects of things. And there's so much more that we don't know and that we don't understand. And, as our science grows, as our instrumentation gets better, we'll be able to tune in to these other levels of matter. I think some of it is now with Kirlian photography. You can see auras in the photography, and where they've done.
I think even beyond that, there's scientists who are beginning to recognize those etheric states. It's not the most public information, but we will see in the coming years, very soon, that our technology will begin to recognize those levels of energy. One of the things we've mentioned on this show, which is a part of this understanding of how we will recognize energies, we have a couple dozen shows of this podcast, and we've even touched on the topic of UFOs. And I know you know this information. On that show, this was back in November with our guest Gerard Artson, we talked about the fact that our space brothers, I hope I'm not taking us off the field here. I hope I didn't throw our audience, but refer to our November show with Gerard Artson. We have the reason we're seeing such an increase in UFOs is that they have the technology to neutralize the nuclear waste in our environment that our instruments cannot even detect. It exists on the etheric level. So that's a critical thing to understand in understanding how we're going to save this planet. So we do need to start to release. I'm sure there are scientists who are already working on recognizing the etheric planes. If the public clamor for that kind of information is needed. Sorry to interrupt there.
No problem. And I think some of the energies that the masters work with are at that level as well. There's three major types of energy that flow through Maitreya, or he works with avatars above him that push energies through him, and he pushes them through to us. And those three types of energies that he's working with are the spirit of peace or equilibrium, the Christ consciousness or the Christ principle, which is the love aspect of the divine, and then the avatar synthesis, which is a combination of the divine energies of will, love, and intelligence.
Before we go to those, why don't we start with Christ consciousness? I think our audience that's pretty recognizable, and that's related to the law of love. Let's start there, and then we can work towards the others.
Yep. Well, Maitreya is pouring in incredible amounts of the love energy into humanity, into the earth. And we tend to think of love as the romantic flavor of love, but love as an energy is actually impersonal. It tends to intensify or amplify everything. So it'll amplify the good as well as the bad. It'll intensify the altruistic as well as the selfish. And I think we're seeing that in our society today, the polarization of, the good and the bad. And one of the things I read, I couldn't even begin to tell you where I read it, was in some of the Share International information, was that Maitreya would be pouring this love into humanity. And what it would do was it would amplify both sides to the point where it would make it just so obvious to us which is the path we want to choose. Whether we want to choose a path towards sharing, cooperation, for the good of all and creating right relationships, or do we want to choose the energy that promotes chaos and war and destruction and hate? And like I said, you're seeing that on our stage, our national stage right now, with
the world stage. Yes, absolutely.
And the world stage, of course. And ultimately, we will choose. It's been foretold that humanity will choose sharing and cooperation and right relationships over, hate, war, and destruction.
That's very positive news. That's I will say, if that's true, then we have every reason to have hope. My personal conviction is that it is true. And I would assume your personal conviction is that it's true too. We invite the audience to consider for themselves. We're not here to convince people. But we ask, we're inviting our listeners to consider the possibility. I will, in a moment, or in the next segment, I'll talk about 3 books that our listeners can download for free. And I found particular sections that relate to precisely to what we're talking about. But I just want to elaborate on something that you've said,
Okay.
and then we'll continue. You said Maitreya is pouring the energies into the world, and I know you and I have been talking about this for the past couple of days, and I got a little clarity on how this energy is being directed in the world. I like the idea of pouring, but it's a little more precise, and it involved it. What I learned really made me happy, because it means that humanity has a role to play in utilizing and distributing this energy. There's not one person, not one entity, not one being, not one master who manages these potent cosmic and planetary energies solo. It is not a solo act. Every kingdom, the spiritual kingdom, the human kingdom, is working in cooperation. And I would say, I'm just thinking for a moment of how we'll fine tune this. But let's continue on the topic of the love energy. I love that you said that it's an impersonal energy. So it sounds like it's stimulating, and it's not just this nice, happy butterflies and unicorns kind of thing. It's a powerful, potent energy.
And it stimulates everything. Now, Maitreya in his work, tries to stimulate more of the good than the bad, but obviously, with the dichotomy that we're seeing, the polarization that we're seeing,
in the world.
especially in our political life in the U.S. right now, is just incredible, and we're seeing people on both sides of the fence coming out into the streets, and luckily what you see on the news is bigger crowds for the positive sides of energy than the negative sides of energy. But it's interesting, having read this information in the past and being aware of the Ageless Wisdom teachings, how this is all coming together and how it's manifesting. And it's like, oh my God, it's really happening. And, people are wakening up. These energies are wakening up people's hearts and people's minds. And people are saying, hey, wait a minute, not in my name. This is not what I want. And people are getting out into the streets, and we're seeing, the Occupy movements and the Black Lives Matters movements. And of course, they all relate to justice.
People are rejecting injustice and demanding justice, demanding dignity for all of humanity. We'll be back after the break. We will talk more about these powerful planetary and cosmic energies that are streaming into the world today with Cindy Bruder. Join us after the break.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Did you know that Share International Radio is more than just a podcast? If you're hungry for thought-provoking views behind the news, there may be a Share International event happening soon near you, providing a spiritual perspective you'll find nowhere else. To locate an event in your area, visit shareontheairradio.org. That's shareontheairradio.org. shareontheairradio.org.
Live with Medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences, to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com.
Join Vibe Nation radio host, international psychic medium Carrie Turcotte, as she guides her listeners to rediscover themselves by accessing the keys of knowledge that already exist within. Each week's show is divinely orchestrated to intertwine with the universal energies, allowing the listeners to go deeper within. At the end of each show, Carrie will tap into the energies of the listeners and give a message from Spirit about the upcoming week. If you really want to get to know who you truly are, join Carrie each Monday at 3 p.m. on Vibe Nation Radio.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Share on the Air Radio. I'm Cielito Pascual in Seattle with Cindy Bruder in Boston. And Cindy, I got a little criticism from my producer last week because we didn't explain something that was mentioned on the show last time I was on. And we mentioned it here. Can you quickly give a distinction? We use the term, we say Maitreya, the world teacher, and then we use the term Christ. Can you give a quick explanation of the distinction there?
Basically, there is no distinction. The world, there's just a couple of different names that Maitreya goes by. One is the Christ, one is the Buddha, one is the Imam Mahdi, the Messiah. But the point is, he's the teacher for our age that has come here to help guide and energize humanity.
And throughout the ages, at critical junctures in time, in humanity's history, a great teacher has always emerged to assist us to the next level of expansion of consciousness. You mentioned that earlier, and that is the process of our evolution, is our continuing expansion of consciousness, our evolution. You know, we are spiritualizing matter in this process of over hundreds of thousands of years. And so we just want to emphasize that the great religions of the world and the indigenous cultures, in their myths, in their legends, in the practices, there is an expectation of the return of a great teacher. And according to the Ageless Wisdom teachings, Maitreya, the world teacher, fulfills those expectations for all the religious traditions, all the indigenous traditions, and he returns for people of no spiritual practice, as well as for those of many various spiritual practices. I just wanted to cover that. So let's turn back to the other energies in the world. Maitreya the Christ, also known as, embodies the Christ consciousness, embodies love. But he also is anchoring in the world, working with them. I mentioned early the collaborative process. Today being the Wesak Festival. As you said, there's tremendous energies being directed into humanity. And there is a great avatar, the avatar of synthesis, who works in collaboration with Maitreya. Can you talk a little bit about that? My understanding is that the avatar of synthesis transmits energy to Maitreya it's Maitreya's role to transmit that energy to the Masters of Wisdom. The Masters of Wisdom transmit that to humanity, but there's also a specific process there. But before we go too far,
right.
Synthesis. Why is that the hallmark of the Age of Aquarius?
Well, the avatar synthesis is a great cosmic being who embodies the divine energies of will, love, intelligence, and a fourth energy that we don't have a name for yet. This energy only works through groups. We're going into the Age of Aquarius, which is a cohesive, a cooperative time. It's a group work time as well. And a lot of the Aquarian energies coming in right now can only work through a group. And the avatar synthesis energies only works through groups. So that's one of the reasons why, and we'll talk about this later, the transmission meditation is a group meditation. And there's a reason for that.
It's really interesting that you say these energies can only be experienced in a group. Oftentimes, you'll hear certain kinds of, in the different spiritual workshops that there are around, someone will say that they are channeling energies from Aquarius. But there's a little more subtlety to the understanding of what that means than is often presented. So that's our endeavor here on this show, is to dive a little deeper. It's interesting in my reading. These energies are manifesting through the Masters of Wisdom, through humanity, and for example, through the General Assembly at the United Nations. We don't often hear about the United Nations in the media here in the U.S., but the United Nations continues to exist, and it is it is part of this process of the Age of Aquarius, of countries coming together in a group. I don't know that diplomats are conscious of the energies we're describing, but certainly in their work for improving the conditions of humanity, they are demonstrating the priorities of Maitreya and of the Age of Synthesis. So those energies are being utilized and distributed through the United Nations. An interesting detail. Another avatar working with Maitreya. Again, this is not a solo show. When we talk about messiahs, we think of this one figure, this one leader doing it all. That's not the case in the Ageless Wisdom teachings. Talk about the spirit of peace and equilibrium.
The spirit of peace or equilibrium works through Maitreya. It works with the law of action and reaction to transform the current chaos and chaotic conditions into a love energy. And the spirit of peace and equilibrium is the love energy at the cosmic level.
Love at the cosmic level.
Which is pretty high up there.
I don't know that I can comprehend that, but
no.
I'll take your word for it. That's big. That's huge.
Yeah,
that's huge, as we say these days.
Exactly. And, of course, there's cosmic and planetary energies that are flowing through Maitreya, that he is, I think of him in terms of a maestro. He's conducting, these energies, and he knows exactly how much and of what flavors of energy, we need as humanity, what the earth needs. And, he tries to balance those out and incorporate those as best he can into, there's so much that Maitreya does that we don't understand. He's, like I said, he wields incredible energies. He's, helps us through the first couple of expansions of consciousness that humanity encounters. Like I said, we live multiple lives. Our vibrational rate changes. Our evolution changes. We ultimately our consciousness expands. We understand more and more, and that comes with those energies and the increase in consciousness with that.
So he's definitely the master conductor of these energies, and I'm going to highlight something that's very unique, especially about the Wesak Festival. Mm-hmm. And most our students of the Ageless Wisdom teachings know this. And I'm sure many very committed spiritual students either intuit this or know it consciously. But the Christ actually works with the Buddha. They're actually they work together like brothers, and they are brothers. Buddha is part of transmitting the wisdom aspect of God. The Christ, or Maitreya the Christ, embodying the love aspect of God, and they both work together, transmitting energy hourly, day by day, and that effort is heightened during the spring festivals.
And especially today, where it's Wesak, it's the festival of the Buddha. Supposedly it's the closest that the Buddha comes to Earth during the year, is my understanding.
On the etheric plane. I'd love to hear from our listeners. The best way to communicate is to send us a message on Facebook. If you're able to do that right now as we're broadcasting live, you're welcome to, or after the show. If you have questions, that's the best place to post them. I'll go before our break. Let me talk about the 3 books that are available for free download. If you go to our Facebook page, we have a link that's up there now. It should be right there at the top of the feed. 3 books. 1, The Awakening of Humanity. On page 11, you can read all about these the spring festivals that we're describing, and these great avatars of energy that we're describing. So please take a look at that. The second book you can download for free. There's three free books, and then an additional 15 or so other texts written by Benjamin Creme. Fabulous books. The second book is The World Teacher for All Humanity, and the third book is Transmission, a Meditation for the New Age. And we'll talk about transmission meditation after the break. But in that book, I noted it. Let's see if I can see it in my notes here. There was a particular page. I don't think I have it right in front of me, but I think it's page 86, where our listeners can read in detail about these great avatars. Avatar, the word avatar is a Sanskrit word meaning literally coming down from far away. So the root AV is the idea of off and away and down. I just learned that today, so I'll share that. Stay with us after the break. We will talk about how our listeners can receive these energies, these powerful planetary and cosmic energies directly, and work directly with the Masters of Wisdom after the break.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Want to help build the coming golden age? Want to experience the Aquarian energies of love, light, and power? Transmission meditation is a simple way for you and 2 or more friends to do just that and accelerate your own spiritual growth at the same time. Check out transmission meditation at shareontheairradio.org. That's shareontheairradio.org.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on The Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And we're back on Share on the Air Radio. I want to make the most of our last minutes on this show because I wish we had a 2-hour show. So much to talk about. So welcome back, Cindy.
Thank you.
From Boston. Thanks for taking the time with us. And you talked about the avatar of synthesizing, bringing together in groups, bringing humanity together, synthesizing humanity into the unity that we essentially are. That's a big thing. But let's talk about brass tacks. You're a very practical person.
Yes.
The most practical principle, the most practical energy we can implement as individuals is the principle of sharing. Talk about that. Talk about the power of that and the purpose of the soul.
Oh, certainly. Well, the purpose of the soul is to, realize our divinity and our divine potential. And sharing is divine. I talked about this, the love aspect and how it intensifies or amplifies good and bad or altruistic and selfish. And when we share, it's divine. When we keep things to ourselves, being selfish, well, that's not not the best way to do it. And
when we share, we recognize the divine in our brother,
in our fellow humanity, of course. And one of the things that I like to do is to share my love, my joy, my happiness as best I can. And sometimes it's only just a smile. But, if you go out of the door in the morning with the intention of trying to bring a little bit of the divine down to earth, then you're much more likely to think in those terms and be able to share love, joy, thoughts. But it goes beyond that, too. Practically, we've got millions of people starving to death in the world, and it's not a lack of food. It's a lack of recognizing the divinity in each other, recognizing that we're all humanity, we're all connected to the same source, and that when we create problems for one of our brothers or sisters, we're actually creating those problems for ourselves as well. If you want to talk about the law of karma, that kind of comes into play.
That's generating energy in itself.
Of course.
Talking about energies, that whatever we generate will rebound. What goes around comes around.
And what we think about, we create, we manifest what we talk about, we put energy behind, and so we have to be careful with our thoughts and our words because they do have impact. Our thoughts are things. They do affect people. They affect others around us, whether we realize it or not.
And so bringing the intention of sharing, not just among the people that we like, but we've got to bring sharing on a global level. That's a big task.
Well, a lot of people, they don't like that word because it means, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to give everything up, to share. And that's not the case at all. And what the documentation says with Share International is that the countries themselves will be asked to make a list of what are our, what do we produce? What are our excesses? What are our needs? What do we need? And at a country level, the sharing will happen worldwide as Maitreya becomes more and more a part of our everyday lives.
Well, there'll be a redistribution, not in the sense of if in the U.S. we have an excess of bread, just for a simple example. It doesn't mean denying anyone, any American, any bread. It's taking the excess beyond what we need. In this world, 1/4 of the world's population hoards and wastes 3/4 of the world's resources. I mean, we all know the math, the 1% and the 99%.
Yep.
That's an utter imbalance that denies the divinity of who we are. And that is a situation that Maitreya and the Masters are here to help us remedy. Yes. And it's the time right now. So let's jump right to transmission meditation as a way for ordinary people in a very, very simple way to participate in this global transformation, to work with the Masters of Wisdom, to work with these planetary and cosmic energies. And you're a host of a transmission meditation group there in the Boston area. Why don't you talk about your experience with that?
That's correct. Well, let me back up. You mentioned transmission meditation, and I want to compare that with other forms of meditation. All meditation, the purpose of all meditation is to connect with our soul, to connect. There's a bridge of light between our physical brain and our soul, the antakarana. And meditation, personal meditation, will help you make that connection. The difference with transmission meditation is it's a group meditation. The energies of Aquarius, like we mentioned before, only work in group formation. Those energies flow through us during this type of meditation. It consists of two types of yoga, the transmission meditation, karma yoga and laya yoga. Karma yoga is the yoga of service, and laya yoga is the yoga of the energies or the chakras. And when we get together as a group of 3 people or more, there's a triangle of light that's created between the individuals in the group. And for every person extra in the group that you have, that creates another set of triangles. So 3 people will make one triangle, 4 people will make, 4 triangles, something like that? It increases exponentially. And I don't completely understand it, but like I said, there's this triangle of light that gets created. The Masters of Wisdom use that because more energies can go through a triad than through 3 individuals. And when we sit down to do this transmission meditation, we start with the Great Invocation that was released by Maitreya through Alice Bailey in 1945. I think you probably have that up on your website. That indicates to the Masters of Wisdom that we are ready to meditate. They, I want to use the word channel, but whatever, they
transmit
planetary and cosmic energies through the individuals in the group, use us, our top chakras, our top energy centers in our system, in our bodies, to step those energies down, make them more absorbable for humanity. I use the analogy of when you look at a telephone pole, you'll see those black things at the top. Those are transformers. They step the electricity down so that your hairdryer doesn't blow up, your razor doesn't blow up. And it's the same thing with the transmission meditation, is that our chakras are used to step those energies down and make them more absorbable for humanity. We don't get any words of wisdom from the masters during this meditation. We don't direct the energies. We might think, oh my gosh, they're fighting over there. We should send them energy. Meanwhile, the masters are trying to pull energy out and let the place calm down. So we don't direct the energies. The masters of wisdom are master scientists. They can see how much of what flavor of energies can pour through each individual in the group. And then they take the energies and do whatever they do with them. Either they're going to use them now or they're going to store them up and save them for a rainy day. I'm not really sure. But it's an incredible form of meditation. It's an incredible form of growth. I feel the energies. They feel to me as a buzzing or a little bit of a pressure. I know there's some members in my group, they see colors sometimes, but that's not the thrust of the meditation. The thrust of the meditation is to be there, to
be of service.
Be of service. And it's a win-win.
I'm going to jump in right here because I want to end. This connects back to what I brought up earlier in the show. You have the avatar of synthesis, the spirit of peace and equilibrium. They're transmitting energy to Maitreya. Maitreya is transmitting that energy to the Masters of Wisdom. The Masters of Wisdom are transmitting that energy to those of us in transmission meditation groups. We are all stepping it down. It's not just this fire hose of energy that's gushing out into the world. We're all participating as transmitters of energy, and it's a profound service, and everyone's required. Everyone can make a difference. Everyone can participate, no matter who you are. You don't have to be a master of wisdom to participate in a transmission meditation group and to transmit these extraordinary energies, and that's something I really want to get across to our audience. So our audience members can visit transmissionmeditation.org, and they can send an email to find out a group near them. Cindy, thank you so much for your information. Thank you for your service and being a host of Transmission Meditation. Loved your information that you shared.
Thank you for having me.
And we will be, yes, you're very welcome. We will be back with Diana Gold Holland hosting next Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Thought-provoking views behind the news, the biggest story of all time. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.